Good afternoon. Welcome back. It is Friday, May 19th, 2023. We have four birthdays today, and they are four very different drivers, and I actually have cards of all four of them, so big surprise from what we've been experiencing lately, where we might have three or four drivers, and I don't have any cards whatsoever. Only two really big events happened on this day. Actually, three events, two happened on the same day, and then a third happened 10 years to the date later. So we'll start in 1991 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Davey Allison won the Winston. The biggest significance of this would be the last daytime scheduled running of the Winston, or whatever incarnation of the All-Star race would be called later, at Charlotte. Of course, 92 they went under the lights, and after that they kept it there until 2020, and they moved it to Bristol. And it's kind of hopped around ever since. Texas a couple years, and Wilkesboro this weekend. So it's very, very exciting there. Also on this date, NASCAR and Winston hosted on the little quarter-mile track on the front stretch the NASCAR Legends race. That race is all over YouTube. I recommend you watch it. It's very highly entertaining. They had cars of the era, meaning 1991-esque. So there was a couple Monte Carlos and some Ford Thunderbirds and I think a few Luminas and a couple Buicks and Oldsmobiles of that time. But they were painted up like the legends that drove them. So there were drivers like Cale Yarborough and Tim Flock and Junior Johnson and a host of other Hall of Famers and big-name drivers in that race. So I recommend you go back and watch it. Not going to spoil the finish because it was a really, really good finish. Then, like I said, 10 years to the date on 2001 during the running of the Winston, Jeff Gordon won. No surprise there. The bigger surprise was how he did it. He did it in a backup car, and he got into his backup car after the green flag was thrown. Yes. When they threw the green flag originally, cars went into turn one, and they wadded them up, kind of like they did at Daytona last year, because all of a sudden there was just a pop-up rain shower. Of course, the tires are treadless, and a handful of cars went into the wall, and Jeff's primary car was severely damaged. There were several cars that were damaged. NASCAR permitted them to get their backup cars out, since this was not a points-paying race. So there's obviously different rules. NASCAR allowed the teams to bring out their backup cars. And of course, I believe they did have to start them at the back, but Gordon did come out and win that race. So anyway, I talked about, we have four birthdays. Well, we'll start with one born on this date in 1954, all the way from Australia, Mr. Tony Spanos. Tony had a very, very brief NASCAR career. I know he ran one race for James Hilton there. I don't remember him really running much other than a couple races. But he was trying to kind of follow Alan Grice and a few other Australians of the era. They had built that track in Australia. Calder Park, and they called it the Thunderdome, and they raced there in NASCAR style cars for many, many years. But they, and I think it was a 1.25 mile track, somewhat looked like Charlotte Motor Speedway at the time. It was a pretty nice facility. But yeah, Tony Spanos, Alan Grice, there was a lot of other Australians that were kind of migrating over at that time, but nobody really was head and shoulders above the current NASCAR stars to stand out. Born on this date in 1971, former Busch Series driver. His father was a pretty strong engine builder during this time, but Matt Hutter. Matt was kind of a prospect during this time, but you see he's in the Phoenix Racing outfit there. He never really panned out. He never really did get... he had the Phoenix ride, which was a very competitive ride at the time. I just don't think he had the experience to really, really line up with what he wanted, or what he needed to provide. Born on this date in 1942, legendary short track racer and 1980 Cup Series Rookie of the Year, Mr. Jody Ridley. Of course, Jody did win in 1981 at Dover. We talked about that the other day. And he did relief drive for Bill Elliott in a couple races in the early part of the 1989 season. And that was his last foray into the Cup Series. Born on this date in 1973. He's won at Indy. He's got several IndyCar wins, a couple championships, I believe, if I'm remembering right, and a few NASCAR starts to boot. Mr. Dario Franchitti. So Dario was hired by Chip Ganassi in 2008 to come on board. Of course, there's a few NASCAR cards made of him, but Chip hired him to be in his Cup car and his Nationwide Series car at the time. And fortunately for Dario, he got injured at Talladega, broke an ankle, and it just was not good sailing for Dario. But there you see a parallel. And that was when, it's kind of funny. We talked about during this era, you had a lot of short track guys. When Jody Ridley came in, you had people like Harry Gant and Dale Earnhardt, Terry Labonte, and Morgan Shepherd, and Mark Martin, all these short track guys coming in from all over the country. Tony Spanos, like I mentioned, he was the Australian guy, and there was a wave of Aussies coming in. When Franchitti came in during that time, this was a time when Juan Pablo Montoya, and then we had Franchitti come in. Danica would come in a little bit later. Patrick Carpentier made a splash in NASCAR for a brief minute. And even in the lower tier series, Andrew Ranger came in, and so did A.J. Allmendinger, who, is currently still in the series. So it's kind of interesting to look at the different eras and see where owners were plucking drivers from, saying, hey, this guy did good. Like when Jeff Gordon came in, all of a sudden the rush was go to get dirt car and sprint car guys. Same with Tony Stewart, because Tony Stewart kind of caused the groundswell. Here comes Jason Leffler, J.J. Yaley, and a few others. And some work out, some don't. But it's pretty interesting to watch over the years and see all the different disciplines that owners would rush to. It was almost like Black Friday every few years, where they would go invade. Let's invade the IndyCar store. Let's invade the World of Outlaws store. We're going to pluck all the help from these stores and put them in our teams. Some work, some don't. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Really, really do appreciate it. I do plan on going down to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway tomorrow for qualifying, so I may have a few videos up. Don't know that we're going to go to the Speedrome because my wife has an all-day orientation for her summer job, but we'll have to see if we go there. They do have the big factory front-wheel drive race, the Crazy Car 116. Would really like to go, but I don't think we're going to be able to make it, just because, like I said, she's got an all-day orientation, and I'm going to be at the big track all day as well. So anyway, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we will see you tomorrow.